Hello, everyone. My name is William Mucker, and I am a client executive with Camaplan. I would like to thank you all for joining us for today's webinar, Due Diligence Essentials for Non-U.S. Real Estate Investments, a Caribbean case study with Bruce Kaminsky and David Messersmith with Kaminsky Development Corp. And Ryan Hughes of Titan Bank. As a quick note, please be aware that Bruce, David, and Ryan will be answering questions at the end of the presentation. However, feel free to use the Q&A function on your screen, not the chat, to pose your questions whenever they cross your mind. They will be saved and addressed once the presentation portion ends and the Q&A portion begins. Before we get started, we have a brief disclosure to go through. Everything presented in today's webinar is strictly for educational purposes. Camaplan is a neutral third-party administrator of IRAs. We are not attorneys, CPAs, or financial advisors. If it comes to a time where you need advice in any one of those fields, we highly recommend you consult with your team of professionals. We are more than happy to be a part of this dialogue with your team of professionals to make sure the investment process is quick and seamless. We do not sell any investments at Camaplan, nor do we endorse any products. We will never call you about the next best investment opportunity. We believe that you should always do your own due diligence before investing your money, whether it be your retirement funds or otherwise. Once you have found the investment that is right for you, we will help you open your account, fund that account, and facilitate the transaction. Here is my contact information. If you or anyone that you know who you believe can benefit from the information have any questions about what is discussed in the presentation today and how it applies to self-direction, please do not hesitate to contact me. I would be more than happy to help. And without further ado, I'll pass it over to you guys.
Great. Thank you, Will. And first, we'd like to thank Will and Joe and the entire team at Camaplan for putting this together. And we're going to kick it off this morning with Ryan. Ryan is a friend of the firm here, and you know, he's a 20-year executive banker. And so, Ryan, why don't you jump in and tell everybody what you do?
Thank you, David. So, yes, I'm Ryan Hughes with Titan Bank. I run the self-directed division over here. We're a federal insured bank, FDIC, national bank, and we specialize in the checkbook control, IRA, LLCs, and the Solo K Trust. So if you're doing these alternative investments and you happen, where you need a checkbook option with the 401k trust or if you do set up an IRA, an LLC, and you need that, you can go on our website, titanbank.com. and complete that application. It takes about 5 minutes. And then, that way you can go ahead and invest if you need that option instead of just the standard, IRA, like a custodial account. So that's it. I appreciate you having me on, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about your project and so just some educational about, what's going on in the hospitality space. And it's absolutely booming out here. But I travel a lot around the country, and it's just all the hotels are soon to be packed. So this is an exciting time. So thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Great, thank you. And so I'll go ahead and kick off. Will, can everybody see my screen?
Not yet. You need to share it and take control from me.
All right. So thank you guys for joining this morning, and we are happy to be here. My name is David Messersmith. I've spent most of my career in the hospitality space, and we've got here Bruce Kaminsky as well. He is the sponsor. Bruce and I are working on a project. It's actually Bruce's project in Belize, and what we'd like to do today is just kind of go through some due diligence items to help investors to better understand some of the opportunities as well as risk in investing in international real estate, and share some of the things we've done specifically on our projects. And so to kick off, Bruce again is the sponsor. A little bit about his background. He formed his company in 2003 as a custom builder, and here in the Dallas Metroplex. And he's since grown that business pretty considerably and has expanded doing townhomes and as well as other high-end homes in Las Colinas and other parts of Dallas. But an interesting fact about Bruce is his family. For those of you who are in the Northeast, and so I believe several of you may be, his family started Kaminsky's Ale House, which is based in Cherry Hill and built in 1965. And so Bruce has always had this hospitality bug in him, right? And it's always been a passion of his. And he's been in the restaurant business and been around hospitality in various forms, and just always wanted to get into the hotel side of hospitality. And so he brought me in to help him accomplish that. And so he's purchased a site in Ambergris, which is an island in Belize. And we'll talk about that here in just a second. My background, 14 years experience as both a developer as well as a vice president of luxury interior design firm, which is pretty unique. It's very rare that you have somebody that's kind of sat on both sides of the table and understands a project from both the design side as well as the ownership and financial side, right? And so I've spoken at events all over the world. My role includes everything from site selection, market studies, negotiations with the flags and the operators, hiring all the general contractors and other consultants, and then seeing the project through to completion. And so again, what we want to talk about today is investing in real estate and how that's a great way to diversify your portfolio. And one other comment real quick, guys, you'll see at the bottom of this page and a few other pages is our contact info. Don't feel like you got to be sitting here, taking pictures of your screen or writing things down. Shoot us an email or whatever. We'll send you this presentation. So that way you're just feel free to relax and listen and make notes. So again, investing in real estate is a great way to diversify your portfolio. Specifically, investing abroad is an additional way to spread your risk instead of having all your holdings in a U.S. basket, if you will. And so we're going to talk about how to do that responsibly. And so specific to hospitality, the returns tend to be, the returns from operating income tend to generally be a little higher on the yields than other real estate asset classes, especially those that are highly amenitized destination resorts. And then secondly, for any of you who may be new to real estate investing or specifically hospitality investing, hospitality offers a great way to kind of dip your toe in the water and test the market because, there's crowdfunding and syndication, which allows you to invest a smaller amount rather than having to come in and, write a really large check that you may not be comfortable with. Many hospitality projects allow you to come in through crowdfunding or syndication. So again, you're not, having to put out too much exposure as you're trying to figure out, your strategy investing in hotels abroad. And so, specifically, I apologize. So here's some of the key principles that we think you ought to consider when you're investing abroad. And we're going to spend quite a bit of time on these principles, and then I'll show you later how we applied these specific principles to our project, one of our projects in Belize. So, first, are you investing with a sponsor who has something real to lose, or a broker, or a larger conglomerate? And what's the difference there? If you're dealing with a sponsor like Bruce, a great example here, he's got a lot on the line with this project, right? So he's keeping his head in the game. He's keeping his hands on this project. He's not an absentee developer. His hands are in the middle of everything on this project to make sure that everything's meeting budget, scope, and schedule. As you move into larger entities, say you invest with a REIT, again, nothing wrong with investing in REITs. But those guys may have 5, 10, 15 different projects going on, and each project gets different level of leadership and attention depending on where they're at in the project. And so some different things to think about. And I've also seen REITs put projects on the shelf for a year or two, and because they're focused on other projects. And so those are things to look at when you're investing abroad. Number 2, do you understand the currency exchange rate? Again, we all know exchange rates can be very volatile. And so you want to invest when you're investing abroad. It's best to look at a country where their currency is not as volatile, right? specifically as it relates to Belize, their currency is tied directly to the U.S. dollar. It's always 2-to-1, so very predictable. Doesn't jump around too much. And then number 3, how often is the developer visiting the location, and do they truly have relationships? And this is a really big one, guys. A lot of developers. They'll go out and buy a piece of land, then they'll hire a bunch of consultants to kind of do the project for them. They're not out there on a regular basis, making sure things are going smoothly, but more importantly, having local relationships. As you know, as I'm sure you know, in real estate, each local entity has their own requirements and development, and some of those can be more challenging than others. And it's extremely valuable to truly have relationships with the local government, the local workforces, other local real estate holders, local attorneys, things of that nature, to help you get through the process. So you always want to make sure that they truly have those relationships and they're not just name dropping, right? Political risk. Whether anytime you're investing in anything international, right, you just want to make sure it's a stable country. That kind of goes without saying. And then, do you understand the legal requirements about owning land in that country? Again, every country is different. I've worked in countries and I've done work all over the world. And it's not uncommon for some countries not to allow citizens of other countries to own land in that country. So you always want to just check and see what the requirements are in owning land, and what the tax implications are as well. Number 6 is a really important one. Is it an emerging market or a market that's already peaked? And an example I like to use here is IBM stock, for example. If you're going to invest in IBM stock today, I haven't tracked IBM stock, but my guess is it's not jumping around 20-30%. Right, it's it'll have a few valleys, it'll have a few peaks, but they're not drastic. Same with real estate, right? Are you if you bought IBM today, you're probably not buying the value, right? You're buying predictability. You're buying a safe bet. Versus I can use an example like myself. I bought Bitcoin a year ago. Absolute worst time to jump into that, and Ryan's rolling his eyes at me. I bought Bitcoin at 42,000, and it is nowhere near 42,000 a day, right? And so, you want to look at emerging markets versus markets that are already peaked. For example, if you want to invest in hospitality in Boston, you're going to pay a premium, right? Because that market's already established, the value's already been sucked out. But if you buy in the right location, it's fairly predictable. An example for our project in Belize, it is definitely an emerging market, and we'll show you a slide here later on the trends that kind of show the upward trajectory of the market. And so there's lots of upside in those kind of markets. Here's a big one: demand generators. Demand generators. As most of you know, those are things that drive people to a market that are going to need a hotel to stay in, right? You want to make sure that those are stable. For example, an example I gave recently, got a client that owns a distillery out in Kentucky, a bourbon distillery, and he wanted to do a hotel right next to his distillery, and was looking for investors. I would never advise any investors, any of my clients, to invest in that deal. What happens if his distillery catches fire or goes out of business? There's nothing else around there within 20 miles, right? And so you want to make sure your demand generators are stable and consistent and predictable. Moving to number 8, has the developer thought through how to limit uncontrollable risk, such as natural disasters? So you've got earthquakes, you've got hurricanes, you've got all kinds of things to deal with. If you're building in Peru, you better make sure that from a constructability standpoint, you've thought about earthquakes, right? In our case, we're building a beachfront resort. You better make sure, right, that our project is constructible to Miami-Dade Category 5 hurricane standards. And so there's things of that nature, as well as insurance. And, you want to make sure that the developer is truly, covering all the risk as much as possible. And, number 9, does the development team have expertise in this asset class? Obviously, that's kind of a self-explanatory one. You don't want somebody, you don't want to, go into, invest in a hotel from somebody who's done nothing but data centers, right? You want to make sure they've got a team of people around them that know what they're doing, and have done it numerous times and have a track record. And then, last, how well do you know the country? You want to, if you're going to be putting money into something, the developer should have no issue inviting you out to the site, meeting the team, putting you on the call with, the hotel brand, et cetera. So, you just, you should never invest internationally in something that, you can't go see, smell, touch, taste for yourself, right? You need to know it's real. And again, we're going to, offer to email this to anybody that wants to see it later. So again, just our contact info is there at the bottom. So email us with questions. So the next page, as I mentioned, specifically, we're going to apply these principles to a project that Bruce is doing in Belize, and I'm the project manager for. So specifically why Belize, and specifically Ambergris Caye, which is the largest island in Belize. And so, San Pedro is the largest, the largest city on the island. Lots of shops, restaurants, hotels. Those are demand generators. It's the world's 2nd largest barrier reef. That barrier reef is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Again, demand generator. Another interesting fact about the barrier reef, while we're talking about it, it's unique in that it really protects the island from hurricanes. So knock on wood, anytime there's been a hurricane in Ambergris Caye, it has not been, devastating. The reef really protects the island, which is a great benefit there. Another thing you really need to look at, and another principle is airlift, right? If you're going to invest in something internationally, you want something that's got lots of, numerous direct flights and indirect flights with major carriers. If you're, working in a country that's got, American Airlines is, for example, is the only airline, bringing guests to that country. If American Airline pulls the plug, your hotel's in dire straits, right? So you want to make sure you've got plenty of airlift from lots of options. And then also, going back to demand generators, Belize is world known for diving, sailing, fishing, snorkeling. We've got the Blue Hole, which is consistently ranked number 1 and number 2 in diving. In fly fishing, it's only one of, Ambergris Caye is only one of 4 places in the world where you can accomplish what's called a super grand slam, which is where you catch tarpon, permit, and bone fishing. Again, I'm not a fisherman. That's a huge deal, though. That island, fishing is a massive demand generator. That's not going away anywhere, right? That ocean will always be there. And so as we cruise along here, again, because of these demand generators, it creates additional opportunities for revenue, destination weddings, corporate events, things of that nature. We talk about, you want to invest in places that are somewhat easy for you. I'm assuming most of the people on this call are probably American. The language is English. The Belizean dollar is linked directly to the U.S. dollar. In fact, I've never gone to the currency exchange to get Belizean dollars. They take U.S. dollars there as well. So, I've gone there numerous times. Never carried a Belizean dollar on me. So as we move on, we talked about airlift. This is really important when you're investing abroad. You want to make sure that there's lots of flight options, right? And so, in our case, specifically applying this principle to our project in Belize, you can see there's 13 flights from the U.S. and Canada, and then there's an additional 10 direct flights from Latin America, from countries including Panama, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, and obviously then from Europe and the rest of the world, we're basically one connection away. You can fly into Miami or New York from just about anywhere in the world, or Dallas, and then get a direct flight into Belize. So those are all things you want to look at. The other interesting thing about Belize, especially for those of us in the U.S., so I'm based in Dallas today. A flight from Dallas to New York is 3 hours and 25 minutes. A flight from Dallas to Miami is 2 hours and 45 minutes. LA is 3 hours and 15 minutes. Belize is only 2.5 hours. It's actually closer for me to go to Belize than it is to go to many of the major cities in the U.S. We won't expand too much here, just kind of showing you the blue hole. And again, Belize, the demand generators are, fishing, nightlife, restaurants, scuba. TripAdvisor named Ambergris Caye the best island in the world. Again, you can see fishing and nightlife. And then, as we go to, some of the other reasons to invest, Belize specifically, one of the reasons Bruce targeted in on Belize and Ambergris Caye is high demand and little supply. So this market had historically been served, dominated by small, privately owned, family-owned hotels and inns, and those guys were doing really, really well. I'll show you here in a minute. The big hotel, the international hotel brands have realized that, and the secret's out, and so they're all coming. And again, location. It's not only is Belize a great location, Ambergris is a great location, and then specifically on the island itself, making sure you've got the right location, right? So it doesn't do you any good to buy a hotel site 20 miles outside of New York City, right? You're not going to get the New York City traffic. So same example here. Our site is basically at the corner of Main and Main. Some of the things to look at on this, want to point out on this, you can see all those tiny little dots. Those are all the little family-owned hotels, and they've all been there forever and done really, really well. You can see in bold, starting from the north end of the island, Margaritaville Resort, which opens early next year. A little further down, right in the middle of the island, is our site. You can see Marriott is there with their autograph collection. Hilton has their Mahogany Bay. Four Seasons is not on our island, but they're an hour south by ferry. So the secret's out. All the international flags have recognized this is an emerging market, which we talked about earlier, and specifically our site. We've got 700 feet of beachfront, and again, AAA rated site by HVS. And so going on for our next page, again talking about emerging markets. The real thing you want to take a look at here is, year over year, obvious growth. And then, the thing to look at, 5 years ago, investing in Belize was probably too early, right? They didn't have the infrastructure. There weren't as many flights. The government was still a little young as far as development and working with, international developers. So 5 years ago was too early. 3 years from now, maybe too late. And so those are kind of the things you look at in emerging markets, is you want to grab that sweet spot so you can make a value investment. And so those are what you look for in investing internationally. And so, our project specifically, again, applying some of these principles, we've got an internationally branded lifestyle resort. And we went with a branded resort, to give, not only ourselves, but our investors that confidence that we've got an international marketing system behind us, an international reservation system behind us, an operations system behind us. We also have, we've signed our agreement with the second largest third-party manager in the world. And so, again, as you're doing your due diligence, you want to make sure that you're investing in teams and not dreams, right? You want to make sure you're investing in people that have been there, done that, and have a track record. And so those are some of the things we've done, as well as world-class resort amenities. So we took a look at what's going on in the island, what the amenities that are offered through other hotels, things that are highly popular. we copied those, and then in the process of doing those studies, we found some things that were missing, and so we'll be able to fill some gaps in the market as well. So again, here's our project. This is actually a picture from our site. That's our beach. There we are there in the middle of the island. This next page on the left side, that development on the left is actually the Hilton Mahogany Bay. And so, really, great project. You can see our beach here as well. You can see ours is a little different in style. We're actually right on the ocean, and we're going for more of a beach resort. And again, our contact info is on the bottom of the page, guys. So don't feel like you got to take too many notes or take pictures of the screen. This next screen just simply shows next door to our hotel resort. Again, I mentioned Bruce is also a residential developer. We're doing branded residences that'll be for sale. And so these are some of the elevations to show the caliber of what we're designing on those. Because of SEC regulations, I don't think we're allowed to show our hotel. But again, if you email us or call us, we can tell you more about that. But it'll be in very similar style to the residences. So this gives you an idea of the caliber. You always want to kind of be able to see what you're investing in, right? And further, not only just the pretty pictures, but you want to know who are the teams doing this? Who's the architecture firm, and who are the teams that are doing this? Can they really pull it off? We've all seen things where you look at something on paper and then you see it in person and it doesn't look quite the same, right? So want to make sure you've got a solid team that they're working with. As we talked about, one of the principles being valuable relationships with government officials. Really, really important. We've got a letter here I think Will's going to throw up for us from Minister Perez in Belize. And again, it's really important not to, if a developer talks about the relationships they have, that's one thing. You want to make sure they really have those relationships. So, Minister Perez here in Belize, he's oversees the Ministry of the Economy and Aviation. And the thing I want to point out from this letter specifically is the very middle paragraph. He states he can assure that our government, under its open for business strategy, has placed this project on its fast track program to ensure it can get started as soon as possible. We're fully convinced the property identified is an ideal location for this development, which would be in Ambergris Caye. And so basically, this is a letter of support from one of the highest ranking officials in the government saying, I'm behind this. And he has further gone on to say that he will personally hand walk all of our documents through the entitlement process and through the zoning processes and to fast track this thing. And so that's what you're looking for when you're investing internationally. You want to work with people who truly have those relationships and don't just name drop. So as we go back to our presentation here, sorry. There we go. Again, you want to work with experienced teams. You want to make sure you've got demand generators that are always going to be there, and location. Again, in our case, we've got an international brand. We've got the second largest management company in the world. Also in our case, I failed to mention earlier, we actually had some of the biggest brands in the world chasing us for this deal. We had Marriott, we had Kempton, we had Hard Rock, we had Hyatt, we had Viceroy, we had Fairmont. They were all chasing us. So that should give you an example of, when you're investing internationally, ask them who's chasing your deal, who else wanted your deal. That'll tell you if the industry thinks as highly of their project as they're portraying to you. Same process with our third-party operators, right? We had the best operators in the world pursuing us. We went through an RFP process to vet out who would be the best flag for us and make sure we got the best deal from that flag, as well as our third-party operators. So those are all things that you want your developer to be able to show you that they've done to look out for the best interest of your investment. Again, This is something I apologize for going long. I'm passionate about hospitality, as you can probably tell. Love talking about it, but I appreciate you guys taking the time to look at this. As you're looking at any international investments, go back to the page on investing abroad. And again, we can send all this stuff to you if you shoot us an email. Look at those principles, and those are the non-financial principles, right? And then once you check those boxes and make sure that the project you're looking at seems to check those boxes, then you get in touch with a guy like Ryan and say, hey, let's look at the pro forma and the projections. Start poking holes in that thing for me, man, and let's do those numbers make sense, right? And so that's our presentation for today. I hope it was somewhat educational, and Bruce and I appreciate you guys taking the time, and we're open for questions, I believe.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. As Bruce and David said, please use the Q&A function if you guys have any questions. Their contact information is on the screen. We'll try to take as many questions as we can. But if you think of something after the presentation, feel free to reach out to them. Or if you have a question about self-direction, my contact information was presented earlier. You can reach us at info@camaplan.com or 215-283-2868. So any questions, please put into the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen.
And I think Bruce is always in Belize. So if anybody ever wants to join him in Belize and enjoy the sights and sounds of Belize and dip your toe in the water, let him know, man. He'd love to show you around.
All right, we do have a question coming in from Shell Dean. Are there any countries that you are aware of where the U.S. prohibits investing in properties?
There are not any that I know of. My guess would be you might want to take a hard look at Russia, given what's going on there. That may be challenging. Places like Iran may be challenging. But yeah, get with a real estate attorney specific on specific countries and verify that. Typically, countries that the U.S. has friendly relationships with are no problem whatsoever. But obviously, given what's going on in Russia, that would be one that I would guess would be challenging and probably risky as well.
Thank you for that. Another question came in from an anonymous attendee. Is the investment only open to accredited investors?
Ryan, Bruce, you want to take that one?
Yes, we do. It is. We do have a private placement memorandum, and it is for accredited investors.
Okay, perfect. Accredited investors only. Any other questions that we have from the attendees? Somebody raised their hand. You can just put your question in the Q&A function. You don't have to raise your hand.
I like the politeness of a raised hand, though. That's pretty good.
It is very polite. Great manners. So the Q&A function should be right to the right of the raise hand button. Just wait for that one to come in. Any questions that people should be asking?
Yeah, I think kind of as we touched on before, when you're investing internationally, it comes with some measured risk, right? And you've got to make sure you measure those risks properly and you account for those. And so I can't stress enough, I don't know if I did it well enough in this presentation, relationships, right? Please don't write a check to somebody you don't know, or a site that you can't go see. It happens all the time, and you'll see lots of incomplete projects from different countries have different regulations on who they'll let develop, and so just please always do your homework, know who you're investing with, and be smart about it, because there are some there's some oceanfront property in Omaha that people are selling all over the place, right? So just be careful.
Awesome. Thank you. So we do have a question from Robert. He asks, how far along are you in the sales effort, and do you plan to acquire additional waterfront land in Belize?
Yes, we just finally, I don't think David mentioned, but our property is fee simple now. And September 5th, we got the final approval to subdivide. So all 34 of our houses are subdivided and ready to go. The hotel piece is a separate piece, which is a fee simple piece as well. We are in the process now of moving forward on the housing side. We have 5 houses that will start within the next 60 days. And then, yes, I am trying to acquire property around before the word gets out.
And we've been showing the local government our site plans on the hotel specifically, and every step of the way, so that we are now in the process of raising the equity for the hotel project as well. And so is our objective in keeping that close relationship with the government is, as we're ready to go, we're not going to have any slow hangups. They've seen all of our drawings and renderings every step of the way. And so again, as Minister Perez pointed out, we'll be able to fast track as the equity is raised.
Perfect. Thank you. We have another question from an anonymous attendee. What is the benefit of using a checkbook IRA to invest internationally?
Ryan?
I can, and well, you may want to, advise on that, but there's not really, I don't think there's really any particular benefit. I mean, the checkbook control, just if you have a checkbook IRA, we can, obviously you can send wires. There's not really obviously Camaplan can do the transaction for you and send the wire as well, without the checkbook option. So from this standpoint, I don't know if you really have to have that. It's strictly up to you and really how your plan is set up. If you have a 401k trust, then you would have to create the bank account to support the transfers. So that's where we would come in. Really, the IRA LLC is kind of when you're dealing with more transactional, like I would say, like a buy and hold and rental properties. Maybe the property, if you're buying one of the houses or something like that, or investing in one of those, and you're getting rent checks and you're having to pay. That's where it's really a preference on your in terms of what you want with the checkbook or not.
Thank you. Yeah, from my understanding, it also depends on where you're investing and what entities they'll recognize, whether they'll recognize a U.S. LLC or if you have to get an international LLC or something like that. That's my only understanding. And the checkbook control is the big seller for checkbook IRAs.
Yep.
So thank you for that, Ryan. Robert asks, I missed the first part of the presentation. What is your total raise?
For the hotel piece, 72.5 million.
All right, thank you. Another anonymous attendee asks, are you working with a local attorney? I found that working with the locals, the culture is very laid back and it's quite an adjustment mentally.
Yes, it is, and very true. Yes, we're working with local attorneys in addition to our attorneys here. I do want to state, and I don't know if it plays a part in anything what you're doing with the self-directed IRAs, but the entity that owns the asset is a Texas Limited Partnership, and we were approved by the government to be a foreign entity owning an asset in Belize. So the investment vehicle will be a Texas-based company.
All right, perfect. I think that's all the questions we have for today coming in. As I said earlier, if any of you have any questions about the project or international investing, please use the contact information on the screen now. If you have any questions about self-direction and how you can use it to your advantage with the information that was provided today, please feel free to reach out to info@camaplan.com or give us a ring at 215-283-2868. And I want to thank you all for attending, and special thanks to Bruce, David, and Ryan. I appreciate you coming out, spending your time and educating us on your know-how.
been a treat. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their day, and I'll end the webinar now.
Thank you, Will.